What would you do if you discovered your blindness was never real? After months under her family's control, Sophia Lancaster escapes and finds refuge on Luke Mitchell's farm. But the powerful Lancasters won't let her go so easily. Before we dive into the story, comment below where in the world you're watching from today. Sophia Lancaster sat motionless by the window in her family's mansion, her unseeing eyes staring out at what she knew was a beautiful garden. The accident had happened 8 months ago, a terrible car crash that took her sight but spared her life. At least that's what her family told her every day. "Sophia, darling, it's time for your medicine." Her mother Eleanor's voice cut through her thoughts. Eleanor Lancaster was not a woman used to being kept waiting. As the matriarch of one of the wealthiest families in the county, she was accustomed to immediate obedience. "I don't want it, Mother." "It makes me so tired," Sophia replied, her fingers gripping the armrest of her chair. Eleanor's heels clicked sharply across the marble floor. "Now, Sophia, we've been through this. The doctor says you need it. You're still so fragile." Fragile. That word again. Since the accident, it felt like the only word used to describe her. Fragile Sophia, helpless Sophia, poor, blind Sophia who couldn't possibly take care of herself. "I'm not a child, Mother. I'm 32 years old," Sophia said. But she held out her hand anyway. It was easier than arguing. "And you'll always be my baby," Eleanor replied, pressing the pills into Sophia's palm. "That's why we take such good care of you. You know you couldn't manage on your own." As the medicine took effect, Sophia felt that familiar foggy sensation cloud her mind. She hated it, this feeling of being disconnected from herself. But her family insisted, the doctors they had hired insisted, that it was necessary for her condition. Later that night, as the house fell quiet, Sophia lay in bed wide awake. Her lady's companion, Margaret, had helped her change and then left her alone, thinking she was asleep. But Sophia had only pretended to take her evening dose, hiding the pills under her tongue and spitting them out when Margaret wasn't looking. For the first time in months, her head felt clear. And with clarity came determination. "I can't live like this anymore," she whispered to herself in the darkness. For weeks, she had been secretly practicing moving around without assistance when she was alone. She had counted steps, memorized the layout of her room, learned to identify objects by touch. Tonight, she would finally put her plan into action. Moving carefully, she felt her way to the closet where she had hidden a small bag with some essentials, clothes, a little money she had managed to save from the allowance her brother Richard gave her. It wasn't much, but it might be enough to get her somewhere, anywhere, away from this beautiful prison. Sophia changed into jeans and a sweater, items her sister-in-law had bought for her, out of pity. She pulled on a pair of sneakers and a light jacket. Her long brown hair was tied back in a simple ponytail. "You can do this," she told herself, fighting against the doubt her family had planted in her mind. The mansion was large, but Sophia had grown up here. Even without her sight, she knew every creak in the floorboards, every turn in the hallway. She made her way downstairs, keeping one hand on the wall, counting her steps. The night guard her family had hired was always stationed at the front entrance, so Sophia headed for the kitchen at the back of the house. There, a door led out to the garden, and beyond that was freedom. Her heart was pounding so loudly she was afraid someone would hear it. But she made it to the kitchen without detection. Her fingers found the door handle, and with a deep breath, she stepped outside into the cool night air. For a moment she stood frozen, overwhelmed by the enormity of what she was doing. The night sounds, crickets, distant traffic, the rustle of leaves surrounded her. It had been so long since she had been outside without someone holding her arm, telling her where to step, what to avoid. "Keep going," she whispered to herself. "Don't stop now." She knew the garden path led to a gate, and beyond that was the road. Using her cane, she moved forward slowly, carefully, her free hand extended to feel for obstacles. It took nearly 30 minutes to reach the gate, but when her fingers closed around the cold metal latch, a surge of triumph rushed through her. She was doing it. She was escaping. Once beyond the gate, Sophia walked along what she thought was the shoulder of the road. She had no real destination. In mind, just away. Away from the suffocating care. Away from being treated like a porcelain doll that might break at any moment. She walked for hours, stopping occasionally to rest. The night grew colder, and she pulled her jacket tighter around her. Her initial surge of adrenaline was fading, replaced by exhaustion and the first tendrils of doubt. "What am I doing?" she murmured, her voice small in the vast darkness. "Where am I even going?" But she couldn't turn back. She wouldn't. As dawn approached, Sophia's strength was failing. She had misjudged how difficult this would be. Her legs ached, her feet were blistered, and she had no idea where she was. The sounds around her had changed. Fewer cars, more nature sounds. Her cane struck something different, not pavement, but dirt. She must have turned onto a country road without realizing it. Disoriented and exhausted, Sophia stumbled forward a few more steps before her foot caught on something, a rock or a root, and she fell hard, her cane clattering away from her. As she tried to push herself up, a wave of dizziness washed over her. She collapsed back onto the ground, too weak to continue. As consciousness slipped away, her last thought was that at least she had tried. At least for one night she had been free. Luke Mitchell wiped the sweat from his brow as he drove his tractor along the edge of his field. The sun was just rising, promising another hot day. At 35, Luke had been running the Mitchell family farm for nearly 10 years, ever since his father's heart attack had forced him to retire. It wasn't an easy life, but it was a good one. The 200 acres of fertile land had been in his family for generations, and Luke took pride in keeping it productive and well-maintained, even if it meant working from sunrise to sunset most days. He was making his usual morning rounds, checking the fences that bordered the road, when something caught his eye. There, just off the dirt path that led to his property, was what looked like a bundle of clothes. Luke frowned, cutting the engine. Probably just some trash someone had dumped. People were always using country roads as their personal garbage cans. He climbed down from the tractor to clean it up, but as he got closer, he realized with a shock that it wasn't trash at all. It was a woman lying motionless on the ground. "Hey!" he called out, running the last few yards. "Hey, ma'am, are you okay?" There was no response. Luke knelt beside her, gently rolling her onto her back. She was young, maybe early 30s, with pale skin and dark hair. She was breathing, but her face was scratched, and her clothes were dirty, like she'd been walking for a long time. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" He tried again, touching her shoulder. Her eyelids fluttered, and she startled awake, immediately trying to scramble away from him. "Who's there? Who are you?" she gasped, her hands flailing defensively. That's when Luke noticed her unfocused gaze. She wasn't looking at him, but past him. "It's okay," he said, keeping his voice calm. "My name's Luke Mitchell. This is my farm you're on. I'm not going to hurt you. Are you blind?" The woman stopped struggling, her chest heaving with rapid breaths. "Yes," she admitted after a moment. "I am. My name is Sophia. I got lost." Lost was an understatement, Luke thought. They were miles from the nearest town. "Well, Sophia, you look like you could use some help. Let me take you back to my house, get you cleaned up, maybe some food. Then we can figure out where you need to go." Sophia hesitated, and Luke could see the conflict on her face. "Trust a complete stranger, or remain out here alone? I promise I'm just trying to help," he added. "Okay," she finally said, her voice small. "Thank you." Luke helped her to her feet, noticing how she wobbled unsteadily. "Can you walk? My tractor's just over there." "I think so. I lost my cane when I fell." Luke looked around and spotted a white cane a few feet away. "Found it," he said, retrieving it and gently placing it in her hand. Even with the cane, Sophia seemed weak, so Luke offered his arm. "Here, take my arm. It's not an easy walk." After a moment's hesitation, she reached out, her fingers finding his arm and gripping it lightly. He was struck by how delicate her hand seemed, and yet there was a determination in the set of her jaw that suggested strength beneath the vulnerability. Samapaya. Ride back to the farmhouse was short but bumpy. Luke kept apologizing for the rough terrain, but Sophia just held on tight, her face turned toward the wind with an expression that looked almost like wonder. Luke's farmhouse was a modest two-story structure that had stood for over a century. It wasn't fancy, but it was solid and comfortable, surrounded by oak trees that provided welcome shade in the summer. "Here we are," he said as he helped her down from the tractor. "Watch your step. There's a small porch." Luke guided her up the 3 wooden steps and into the house. The screen door creaked as he held it open for her. "That's nothing special," he said, suddenly a bit self-conscious of his simple home, "but it's clean and comfortable. It smells wonderful," Sophia said, taking a deep breath. "Like cinnamon and wood." Luke smiled. "That would be Mrs. Winters's influence. She comes by twice a week to help with cleaning and cooking. Made apple pie yesterday." He led her to the kitchen table. "Have a seat. Let me get you some water, and maybe something to eat. You look like you could use it." "Water would be great, thank you," Sophia said, carefully feeling for the chair before sitting down. Luke filled a glass from the tap and placed it in her hand. She drank it quickly, obviously parched. "So," he said, sitting down across from her, "want to tell me what you're doing out here all alone?" Sophia set the glass down, her fingers tracing its rim thoughtfully. "I ran away," she finally said. "From my family." Luke raised his eyebrows but waited for her to continue. "After I lost my sight in an accident, they became overprotective, controlling. I couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything for myself. They convinced me I was helpless." Her voice grew stronger as she spoke. "But I'm not helpless. I just needed to prove it, to them and to myself." There was a quiet dignity in the way she said it that touched something in Luke's heart. Here was someone who refused to be defined by her limitations. He respected that. "Well," he said, "you made it pretty far on your own. That's something." A small smile touched her lips. "Not far enough. I have no idea where I am or where I'm going." "You're about 15 miles outside of Cedar Grove," Luke told her. "My farm is pretty isolated. Not much around for several miles." Sophia's face fell. "Oh, I didn't realize I'd gone that far. Do you want me to call someone for you? Your family must be worried." "No." The force of her response surprised them. "Both." She took a breath, composing herself. "No, please, I can't go back. Not yet. Maybe not ever." Luke studied her for a long moment. He'd always considered himself a good judge of character, and everything about this woman suggested she was genuine. Whatever she was running from, she had her reasons. "Okay," he said finally. "I won't call anyone, but you need rest and probably medical attention. Those cuts need cleaning and you look exhausted." "I don't want to be a burden," Sophia began. But Luke cut her off. "You're not. Look, there's a spare bedroom upstairs. It was my sister's before she got married and moved to Ohio. You can stay there at least until you're back on your feet. Then we'll figure out what comes next. Deal?" Sophia turned her face toward him, and though her eyes couldn't focus on him, he felt the weight of her consideration. "Why would you do that? You don't know me." Luke shrugged, then remembered she couldn't see the gesture. "Let's just say I was raised to help people in need, and right now, that's you." After a moment, Sophia nodded. "Deal. But only for a day, or 2. I've imposed enough already." Luke smiled. "We'll see. Now how about that food? I'm not much of a cook, but I can manage eggs and toast without burning down the kitchen." For the first time, Sophia laughed, a sound as unexpected as it was. "Beautiful. That sounds perfect." As Luke moved around the kitchen, preparing a simple breakfast, he found himself glancing back at her. There was something about Sophia that intrigued him. Maybe it was the courage it had taken for her to leave everything behind, or the quiet determination she displayed despite her obvious exhaustion. Whatever it was, he had a feeling that finding her on his property this morning was going to change things. He just didn't know how much. Back at the Lancaster mansion, chaos reigned. Eleanor Lancaster paced the living room, her normally perfect composure shattered. How could this happen, she demanded of no one in particular. How could she just disappear? Richard Lancaster, Sophia's older brother and the CEO of Lancaster Industries, stood by the fireplace, his face grim. The security cameras show her leaving through the back garden around midnight. She must have been planning this for some time. "She's blind, for God's sake!" Eleanor's voice rose hysterically. "She can't possibly survive out there on her own." "Mother, calm down," Richard said sharply. "We'll find her. I've already got private investigators looking, and I've contacted some people I know in the police department. They'll be discreet. What if something happens to her? What if someone recognizes her? Eleanor collapsed onto the sofa, her hand pressed to her heart. Richard's wife, Victoria, a sleek blonde with a perpetually bored expression, rolled her eyes. She'll be back once she realizes how difficult life is, without servants catering to her every whim. You don't understand, Eleanor snapped. If she starts talking to people, if she finds out— She won't, Richard interrupted firmly. We'll find her before that happens, and if not— He left the sentence hanging, but the implication was clear. They would do whatever was necessary to protect their secret. They had too much to lose. Find her, Richard, Eleanor said, her voice suddenly cold and controlled. Find her before she ruins everything. Richard nodded, his expression matching his mother's in its determination. I will. Whatever it takes. As he left the room to make more calls, Eleanor stared out the window at the manicured gardens. Beyond them was a world she had tried to keep Sophia from, a world where their carefully constructed lies might unravel. You foolish girl, she whispered. You have no idea what you've done. At the farmhouse, Luke showed Sophia to the spare bedroom. It was simple but comfortable, with a double bed covered in a handmade quilt, a wooden dresser, and a rocking chair by the window. Bathrooms across the hall, he told her, guiding her around the room so she could get a feel for the layout. Towels are in the cabinet under the sink. I'll find you some clean clothes. My sister left some things behind that might fit you. Thank you, Sophia said, running her hand along the quilt. This is all so kind. It's nothing. Get some rest. I'll be outside working if you need anything. Just holler out the window. Sound carries pretty well around here. After he left, Sophia stood in the middle of the room, taking in the unfamiliar surroundings with her other senses. The soft mattress when she felt it with her hands. The scent of fresh laundry and something floral, maybe potpourri. The distant sound of farm machinery starting up outside. It was all so different from her family's mansion, with its marble floors and expensive furnishings. This place felt real, lived in, warm. For the first time in months, Sophia felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. She found her way to the bed and lay down, not even bothering to remove her shoes. Exhaustion overtook her in waves, and, as she drifted off to sleep, one thought followed her into her dreams. She was free. Finally free. And somewhere deep inside, a voice whispered that perhaps she had found not just shelter, but sanctuary. Luke went back to his work, but his thoughts kept returning to the mysterious woman sleeping in his spare bedroom. Who was she really? What had she been running from? And why did he feel so compelled to help her? He had no answers, only a strange certainty that Sophia Lancaster had come into his life for a reason. And for now, that was enough. Sophia woke to unfamiliar sounds, a rooster crowing, the distant lowing of cattle, and the whisper of wind through trees. For a moment, panic seized her as she tried to remember where she was. Then it all came flooding back, her escape collapsing on the road and Luke, the kind stranger who had taken her in. She sat up slowly, her body aching from her long journey. Sunlight warmed her face, streaming through what she assumed was a window nearby. She had no idea what time it was, but it felt late in the morning. Finding the edge of the bed, Sophia carefully stood up. Without her cane, she held her hands out in front of her, taking small steps as she tried to remember the layout Luke had described. 3 steps to the dresser, she murmured to herself. Then 5 to the door. Her fingers found the doorknob and she stepped out into the hallway. The floorboards creaked beneath her feet as she made her way toward what she hoped was the bathroom. Sophia? You up? Luke's voice called from somewhere below. Yes, she called back, freezing in place. I was just trying to find the bathroom. Stay there, I'll come help. She heard his footsteps on the stairs, steady and unhurried. When he reached her, she felt his presence before he spoke, the subtle shift in the air around her. Bathrooms. Right here, he said, gently touching her elbow to guide her. I found some of my sister's old clothes that might fit you, and I put your cane right inside the door. Thank you, Sophia said, feeling warmth spread through her at his thoughtfulness. I'm sorry to be such trouble. No trouble at all, Luke replied, and she could hear the smile in his voice. "There's fresh towels on the rack if you want to shower. Take your time. I'll have lunch ready when you come down." After he left, Sophia found her way into the bathroom. Her fingers located the shower controls, and soon she was standing under a stream of hot water, letting it wash away the dirt and fatigue of her journey. As she showered, Sophia allowed herself to really think about what she had done. She had actually escaped. After months of feeling trapped, of being told she was incapable, she had proven them wrong. A sense of pride swelled in her chest. The clothes Luke had left fit well enough. A simple t-shirt and jeans, a bit loose but comfortable. She found a hairbrush and worked through the tangles in her long dark hair. Using her cane, she made her way carefully down the stairs, counting each step. The smell of something cooking guided her toward the kitchen. "That smells amazing," she said, stepping cautiously into the room. "Just grilled cheese and tomato soup," Luke replied. "Nothing fancy, but it'll fill you up. After living on protein shakes and nutritionally balanced meals my family insisted on, that sounds like heaven." Luke pulled out a chair for her, making sure she knew where it was without making a big production of it. Sophia appreciated his matter-of-fact approach to her blindness. He wasn't overly solicitous, but he wasn't ignoring her needs either. "So," he said as they began to eat, "you want to tell me more about why you ran away?" Sophia hesitated, her spoon pausing halfway to her mouth. "It's complicated." "We've got time." She took a deep breath. "After the accident that took my sight, my family had changed. They became obsessed with protecting me, controlling every aspect of my life. They convinced me I couldn't do anything for myself anymore." "What kind of accident?" Luke asked. "Car crash 8 months ago." Sophia's fingers absently touched a small scar near her temple. "I don't remember much about it. They say I hit my head pretty badly. When I woke up in the hospital, they told me the damage to my optic nerves was permanent. That must have been hard." It was. But what was harder was how they treated me afterward, like I was made of glass. My mother hired a full-time nurse. My brother took control of all my finances, giving me an allowance like I was a child. They even hired a security guard to keep me safe. The bitterness in her voice was unmistakable. "Sounds more like a prison than a home," Luke observed. "Exactly." Sophia set down her spoon, her voice rising with emotion. "I kept telling them I needed to learn to be independent, to adapt to my new reality, but they wouldn't listen. They kept me medicated, drowsy, so I wouldn't hurt myself. The more I protested, the more they insisted I wasn't thinking clearly." Luke was quiet for a moment. "And there was no one you could turn to?" "No friends." Sophia shook her head. "They isolated me, said they were screening my calls for my own good. Eventually people stopped trying to reach me." She gave a sad smile. "The crazy thing is, I think they genuinely believe they're helping me. They can't see how much they're hurting me instead. Sometimes the people who love us the most understand us the least," Luke said, softly. There was something in his voice that made Sophia tilt her head. "You sound like you speak from experience." Luke sighed. "Maybe. My father and I, we didn't always see eye to eye. He had certain expectations for the farm. For me, it took a heart attack for him to finally let go and let me run things my way. And how is he now? Retired to Florida with my mum. Calls every Sunday to tell me everything I'm doing wrong." There was affection in Luke's voice despite his words. "But we've found our balance. That's what I want," Sophia said quietly. "To find my balance, to prove to myself and to them that I can stand on my own." Luke was silent for a moment. Then he said, "Well, maybe this is where you start." "What do you mean?" "Stay here. For a while, at least. Give yourself time to figure things out, away from their influence." Sophia's heart skipped a beat. "I couldn't impose like that." "It's not an imposition," Luke insisted. "The truth is I could use the help around here. Mrs. Winters only comes twice a week, and there's plenty that needs doing. You can earn your keep if that makes you feel better." "What could I possibly do? I'm blind, remember?" There was a challenge in her voice. "You'd be surprised," Luke said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. "My grandmother lost her sight to glaucoma when she was in her 50s. Didn't slow her down a bit. She still ran this household until the day she died." Hope fluttered in Sophia's chest. "Really? Really? So what do you say? Give it a try." You can always leave if it doesn't work out. Sophia hesitated only briefly. Okay, I'll stay for a little while. Good, Luke said, and the simple approval in his voice warmed her more than she would have expected. Now finish your soup before it gets cold. Over the next week, Sophia began to settle into life at the farm. True to his word, Luke found tasks she could manage despite her blindness. In the kitchen, she learned to navigate by touch, helping prepare meals and wash dishes. She sorted laundry by texture, folded clothes, and even helped shell peas from the garden. Each small accomplishment felt like a victory, a step toward the independence she craved. Luke treated her blindness as a fact, not a tragedy. He gave her clear directions, described things when needed, but never stepped in to do something for her unless she asked. It was exactly what she needed. One morning, as they sat on the porch drinking coffee, Luke broke their comfortable silence. I was thinking, he said, would you like to learn how to milk a cow? Sophia nearly choked on her coffee. What, are you serious? Completely. Old Bessie is the gentlest cow you'll ever meet, perfect for a beginner. But I can't see what I'm doing. You don't need to. It's all about touch and feel anyway. Most of the old-timers around here could milk a cow with their eyes closed. Sophia set down her mug. You really think I could do it? I know you could. His confidence in her was still new, still startling. Her family had spent months convincing her of all the things she couldn't do. Here was someone telling her what she could. Okay, she said, feeling bold. Let's try it. An hour later, Sophia sat on a small stool in the barn, her hands covered in sanitizer, with a bucket between her knees and a warm, breathing cow beside her. The smell of hay and animal filled her nostrils, and she could hear Bessie's steady chewing as the cow munched on feed. Okay, Luke said, standing close beside her. I'm going to guide your hands the first time. He crouched behind her, his arms reaching around to position her hands. Sophia felt her cheeks warm at his closeness, at the gentle way his rough farmer's hands guided hers. Like this, he said, his voice close to her ear. Wrap your fingers around, then squeeze and pull down. It's a rhythm. Under his guidance, she felt the warm milk spray into the bucket. She laughed in surprise. I'm doing it. You're a natural, Luke said, slowly removing his hands. Now try on your own. It took a few false starts, but soon Sophia found the rhythm. Squeeze, pull, release. Squeeze, pull, release. The sound of milk hitting the metal bucket was oddly satisfying. I never thought I'd be doing this, she said, grinning broadly. Wait till I teach you how to collect eggs without getting pecked, Luke teased. Later, as they walked back to the house, Sophia held Luke's arm lightly. She was getting better at navigating the farm, but the uneven ground of the barnyard was still challenging. Thank you, she said suddenly. For what? For treating me like a person, not a patient. For showing me what I can do instead of telling me what I can't. Luke was quiet for a moment. That's how everyone deserves to be treated, he finally said, his voice gentle. Something shifted between them in that moment, a connection that went beyond kindness, beyond gratitude. Sophia felt it like a physical thing, a warmth that spread through her chest. She wondered if he felt it too. Richard Lancaster stared at the private investigator sitting across from him in his expansive office. What do you mean? You found nothing? His voice was dangerously quiet. The investigator, a former police detective named Harris, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. It's like she vanished, Mr. Lancaster. None of the taxi services picked her up that night. The bus station has no record of anyone matching her description. We've checked hotels, hospitals, homeless shelters, nothing. She's blind, for God's sake. Richard slammed his fist on the desk. She couldn't have gotten far on her own, which makes her disappearance all the more concerning, Harris said carefully. Have you considered the possibility that someone helped her? Richard's eyes narrowed. What are you suggesting? Maybe this wasn't a spontaneous escape. Maybe she had help. A friend, perhaps. Impossible. We monitored all her communications. Harris raised an eyebrow but wisely said nothing about the ethics of such surveillance. Then perhaps she met someone who saw an opportunity. The implication was clear and it made Richard's blood run cold. If someone had taken advantage of Sophia's vulnerability, if they discovered who she was, what she represented. Double. Your efforts, he said sharply. Expand the search radius. She has to be somewhere. And Harris? He leaned forward. This remains completely confidential. If word gets out that she's missing, there will be consequences. After the investigator left, Richard called his mother. We have a problem, he said without preamble. Harris thinks someone might have helped her escape. Eleanor's voice was tense. That's impossible. We were careful. Well, she didn't just disappear, Mother. And the longer she's out there, the greater the risk. What about Dr. Matthews? Have you spoken with him? Yes, he's concerned about her stopping the medication so abruptly. Says it could lead to complications. What kind of complications? Eleanor demanded. Richard hesitated. The kind that might make her start to question things, remember things. There was silence on the other end of the line. Then, find her, Richard. Whatever it takes. Saastorn back at the farm. Sophia was sitting in a rocking chair on the porch, shelling peas into a bowl on her lap. The repetitive task was soothing, and she enjoyed the feel of the sun on her face. In the distance, she could hear Luke, working on a tractor. The metallic clanks punctuated by occasional muttered words she couldn't quite make out. She smiled to herself. In just a week, she had already come to recognize so many sounds of the farm. The different calls of the chickens, the creak of the windmill, the specific way the screen door slammed if you didn't catch it. Mrs. Winters, the older woman who came to help with the house, had arrived that morning. She had been surprised to find Sophia there, but had quickly adapted, treating her with the same no-nonsense attitude she showed to Luke. You've got good hands, Mrs. Winters had commented as she watched Sophia fold laundry. My sister-in-law's. Blind has been for 20 years. She knits the most beautiful sweaters you've ever seen, says her fingers see for her now. The idea was comforting. Perhaps in time Sophia would develop that same sense, that ability to see with her other senses. She was so lost in thought that she didn't notice the approaching footsteps until Luke spoke. You look deep in thought, he said, settling into the other rocking chair. Just thinking about how different everything is here, Sophia replied. It's so peaceful. It has its moments. Wait until harvest time. Nothing peaceful about that. She smiled. I like hearing you talk about the farm. You really love this place, don't you? It's in my blood, Luke said, simply. 4 generations of Mitchells have worked this land. My great-grandfather built this house with his own hands. That's amazing, to have that kind of connection to a place. Luke was quiet for a moment. What about you? What did you do? Before, I mean. Sophia's hands stilled on the peas. I was an artist, actually. I painted. Landscapes, mostly. She gave a sad smile. Ironic, isn't it? A blind painter. I'm sorry, Luke said softly. Don't be. I'm learning there are other ways to create. Mrs. Winters was telling me about her blind sister-in-law who knits. Maybe I could try something like that. I bet you'd be good at it, Luke said, and the genuine confidence in his voice made her heart swell. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, just the sound of the rocking chairs creaking and the distant calls of birds. Luke, Sophia finally, said, Can I ask you something personal? Sure. Have you ever been married? I mean, you're kind and handsome. She stopped abruptly, feeling her cheeks flush. I mean, I assume you're handsome. You sound handsome. Oh God, that's even worse. She covered her face with her hands, mortified. Luke laughed, a warm sound that made her embarrassment fade. I'll take that as a compliment. And no, I've never been married. Came close once about 5 years ago. Her name was Diane. She was a teacher in town. What happened? Luke sighed. She wanted city lights. I wanted starlight. In the end, she couldn't see herself as a farmer's wife. Left for Chicago to pursue a better opportunity. The wistfulness in his voice tugged at Sophia's heart. I'm sorry. Don't be. We wanted different things. Happens all the time. Still hurts though, doesn't it? Luke was quiet for a moment. Yeah, it does. Sophia reached out, her hand finding his arm. A simple touch, meant to comfort, but as her fingers rested on his sun-warmed skin, something electric passed between them. She felt him tense slightly, then relax. Neither of them pulled away. "What about you?" Luke asked, his voice a little rougher than before. "Anyone special in your life?" Sophia shook her head. "There was someone before the accident. James, he worked for my father's company." She frowned. "After I lost my sight, he came to visit a few times, but it was awkward. He couldn't get past the blindness. Kept talking about how brave I was, how inspirational." She made a face. "I don't want to be someone's inspiration. I just want to be seen as a whole person." "For what it's worth," Luke said softly, "that's exactly how I see you." The simple statement struck Sophia like a physical blow. How long had it been since anyone had seen her that way? As Sophia, not as her blindness or her family name or her tragedy. Tears welled in her eyes, and she turned her face away, not wanting him to see. But Luke seemed to understand anyway. His hand covered hers where it still rested on his arm, warm and reassuring. "Hey," he said gently, "I was thinking of heading into town tomorrow for supplies. Would you like to come? Might do you good to get out a bit." Sophia hesitated. Going to town meant risking being recognized. If word got back to her family, but the thought of hiding away forever was unbearable. And the idea of spending more time with Luke, of experiencing something beyond the farm, was too tempting to resist. "I'd like that," she said. "Very much." Gersi Mudisam, the next day, Luke helped Sophia into his old pickup truck for the drive into town. She was nervous but excited, dressed in a borrowed sundress of Luke's sister's that Mrs. Winters had altered to fit her better. "It's about a 20-minute drive," Luke told her as they set off. "Cedar Grove isn't much, but it's got everything we need. General store, feed supply, small grocery, a diner with the best pie in the county." "It sounds lovely," Sophia said, rolling down her window to feel the rush of air. The sense of summer, wildflowers, freshly cut hay, sun-warmed earth filled the truck. As they drove, Luke described the landscape to her. The rolling fields of corn and wheat, the distant hills, the old Johnson place with its red barn and white fence. Sophia drank it all in, creating images in her mind. When they reached town, Luke parked on the main street and came around to help her out. "Sidewalks are pretty even here," he said, "but there's usually a few people milling about. You want to hold my arm?" Sophia nodded gratefully, her hand finding his elbow. The feel of his solid presence beside her gave her confidence. The sounds of small-town life surrounded them, people chatting, a car honking, the jingle of a shop door opening. Sophia's other senses seemed heightened, compensating for her lack of sight. "Luke Mitchell, as I live and breathe," a woman's voice called out. "And who's this pretty young thing with you?" "Morning, Mrs. Davis," Luke replied. "This is my friend Sophia. She's staying at the farm for a while helping out." "Sophia, Mrs. Davis runs the bakery, makes cinnamon rolls that'll change your life." "Pleased to meet you, dear," Mrs. Davis said warmly. "Any friend of Luke's is a friend of mine. You two must stop by for coffee later." As they continued down the street, Luke greeted several more people, introducing Sophia to each one. She was touched by the easy way he included her, the casual explanation of her presence that invited no further questions. At the general store, Luke guided her through the aisles, describing items and asking her preferences. They selected groceries, household supplies, and a few personal items for Sophia. "Oh," Luke said suddenly, "they've got a bin of yarn here. You mentioned wanting to try something like knitting. Want to feel the different textures?" Sophia's face lit up. "Yes, please." Luke guided her hands to the bin, and she ran her fingers over the different skeins, marveling at the variety of textures. Soft alpaca, sturdy cotton, fuzzy mohair. "This one," she said, holding up a skein of what felt like the softest wool. "What color is it?" "A deep blue," Luke told her, "like the sky just before full dark." "It's beautiful," Sophia said softly, though she couldn't see it. "I'll take it." Luke added knitting needles and a beginner's guide that the store owner assured them had good tactile instructions. Their last stop was the diner Luke had mentioned. He led her to a booth by the window and described the menu options. The waitress, Doris, fussed over them, obviously delighted to see Luke with a companion. "So you two make such a handsome couple," she said as she brought their coffee. "Oh, we're not," Sophia began, but Luke interrupted. Thank you, Doris. And can we get a slice of that famous apple pie to share? After Doris left, Sophia raised an eyebrow. You didn't correct her. Luke shrugged, then remembered she couldn't see the gesture. Seemed easier than explaining. Small towns run on gossip. Figure it's best to let them think what they want. And what is it they think? Sophia asked, a teasing note in her voice. That I've finally found someone worth bringing to town, Luke replied, his voice suddenly serious. Sophia's breath caught. The implication of his words hung between them, charged with possibility. Before she could respond, the bell over the diner door jingled. Luke glanced up, then froze. What is it? Sophia asked, sensing his sudden tension. Nothing, Luke said quickly. Just someone I'd rather avoid. Hang on, I'll be right back. She heard him slide out of the booth and walk away. Straining her ears, she could just make out his lowered voice at what must be the counter. What are you doing here, Jackson? A man's voice replied, too quiet for Sophia to hear clearly. Something about looking for and then a murmur she couldn't catch. Well, you're wasting your time, Luke said, his voice still low but firm, and I'd appreciate it if you'd leave. More murmuring from the other man, then Luke again. I mean it. Go. Footsteps approached, and Luke slid back into the booth. Sorry about that, he said, trying to sound casual, but Sophia could hear the tension underneath. What was that about? She asked, concern creeping into her voice. Nothing important. Just a guy I've had some trouble with before. But something in his voice told Sophia there was more to it than that. Before she could press him, Doris arrived with their pie and the moment passed. As they shared the dessert, their earlier ease gradually returned. But Sophia couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed, that a shadow had fallen across their perfect day. What she didn't know was that the man Luke had confronted was a private investigator, and he had been showing Luke a photo of a missing woman, a photo of Sophia. The private investigator, Jackson Harris, sat in his car outside the Cedar Grove diner, his phone pressed to his ear. I found her, Mr. Lancaster, he said. She's staying with a local farmer named Luke Mitchell. Saw them together in town today. Richard Lancaster's voice was tight with tension. Are you absolutely certain it's her? No doubt about it. She matches the photo exactly. She's blind. Just like you described. The farmer's introducing her as a friend who's staying with him. Did she see you? Harris almost laughed at the irony of the question. No, sir. She didn't see me. But Mitchell did. He's protective of her, confronted me when he saw me showing her photo around. There was silence on the other end of the line. Then, what's the address of this farm? I'll text it to you. It's about 15 miles outside of town. Pretty isolated. Good. That's good. Richard's voice had taken on a calculating tone. Stay in town, but keep your distance. Don't let them see you again. We'll handle it from here. After hanging up, Harris stared at the diner where the blind woman and her farmer protector were still sitting. There was something off about this whole situation. The Lancasters were paying him a fortune to find a supposedly vulnerable family member, but they wanted no police involvement, no publicity. And that woman hadn't looked like a victim in need of rescue. She had been smiling, comfortable, holding onto Mitchell's arm like she trusted him completely. Harris shook his head. Not his problem. He was being paid to find her, not to judge the situation. Still, as he started his car, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something important. Back at the diner, Sophia and Luke were finishing their pie, unaware of the storm that was brewing. So tell me, Sophia said, licking the last bit of apple filling from her fork. What else does Cedar Grove have to offer? Any dark secrets or small-town scandals I should know about? Luke chuckled. Not much escapes notice around here. Everyone knows everyone's business. That sounds nice, actually. Where I come from, people hide behind polite smiles while stabbing each other in the back. The high society life, not all it's cracked up to be, huh? Sophia shook her head. It's exhausting. All those unwritten rules, the constant judgment. I always felt like I was performing rather than living. She smiled ruefully. At least before the accident. Afterward, I was just a problem to be managed. Luke reached across the table and took her hand, a gesture that was becoming familiar between them. You're not a problem, Sophia, you never were. The warmth in his voice made her heart flutter. "Thank you for today," she said softly, "for bringing me to town, introducing me to people, for treating me like I'm normal." "You are normal," Luke said simply. "You just can't see. Doesn't make you any less of a person." Sophia felt tears prick her eyes and she blinked them away. "We should probably head back," she said, not trusting her voice to say more. On the drive home, Sophia was quieter than usual, lost in thought. She was developing feelings for Luke, feelings that both thrilled and terrified her. What future could there be for them? She was still running from her family, still hiding, and even if they never found her, could a man like Luke really want a life with someone like her? As if sensing her thoughts, Luke reached over and squeezed her hand briefly before returning his to the steering wheel. "Penny, for your thoughts? I was just thinking about how different life is here," she said, not quite a lie. "How different I feel. Good different or bad different? Good. Definitely good." She turned her face toward him. "Luke, Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through her head, making her gasp. At the same moment, something strange happened, a flash like a burst of light in the darkness that had been her world for 8 months. "Sophia, what's wrong?" Luke's voice was alarmed. The light was gone as quickly as it had come, leaving her disoriented. I don't know, a headache. It's probably nothing. Maybe you overdid it today. We'll get you home and you can rest." Sophia nodded, but her mind was racing. What was that flash? For a split second, she could have sworn she'd seen something. Light, movement, a blurry glimpse of... what? It was gone before she could make sense of it. Back at the farm, Luke insisted she lie down while he made dinner. The headache had subsided, but Sophia couldn't stop thinking about that strange moment. Was her mind playing tricks on her? The doctors had been clear. The damage to her optic nerves was permanent. Yet as she lay in the darkened room, she couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right, that there was something she was missing, something just beyond her grasp. The kitchen. Luke was chopping vegetables, his movements more forceful than necessary. The encounter with the private investigator had rattled him more than he wanted to admit. The man had been showing Sophia's photo around town, asking questions. He claimed to be a cousin looking for his missing relative, but Luke hadn't believed him for a second. Sophia was running from something or someone, and now that someone was looking for her. Luke set down the knife and braced his hands on the counter. He should tell her. She had a right to know. But the thought of her leaving, of her feeling forced to run again, made his chest ache. In just 2 weeks, she had become an essential part of his life, bringing light and laughter to the old farmhouse in a way he hadn't experienced in years. There was a connection between them, something deep and real. He could feel it growing stronger every day. But was it fair to pursue those feelings when her past was still such a mystery, when she might have to leave at any moment? A soft sound made him turn. Sophia stood in the doorway, her hand on the frame to orient herself. "I thought I'd help with dinner," she said. "That headache is gone now." Luke studied her for a moment. Her dark hair was slightly tousled from lying down, and she wore a simple blue shirt that brought out the pale beauty of her skin. Something protective and tender swelled in his chest. "Sure," he said, keeping his voice light. "You can help me make the salad." They worked side by side, falling into the easy rhythm they'd developed over the past weeks. Luke described where everything was, and Sophia moved with growing confidence around the kitchen, feeling her way but rarely hesitating. "You're getting good at this," Luke observed as she expertly sliced a tomato. "I have a good teacher," Sophia replied with a smile. "You've made me believe I can do things I never thought possible." "You always could. You just needed someone to remind you." Their conversation flowed easily through dinner, moving from farm matters to books they'd enjoyed to childhood memories. It was only afterward, as they sat on the porch watching the fireflies, or rather, Luke watching while describing them to Sophia, that he brought up what had been weighing on his mind. "Sophia, there's something I need to tell you." His voice was serious. "That man at the diner today, he was asking questions about you, showing your photo around." Sophia went very still. "What? Are you sure?" "Positive. He claimed to be a cousin, looking for his missing relative, but I didn't buy it." What did you tell him? Her voice was tight with fear. Nothing. I told him he was wasting his time and should leave. Luke moved closer, taking her hand. Sophia, who is looking for you? What are you running from? She pulled her hand away, standing up abruptly. I should go. I've put you in danger just by being here. No. Luke stood too, gently catching her arm. No running. Not again. Whatever this is, we can face it together. You don't understand. My family has their powerful. They have connections. If they find me here, they could make trouble for you. Let them try. The steel in Luke's voice surprised even him. This is my home, my land. No one is going to force you to leave if you don't want to go. Sophia's expression was a mixture of fear and hope. Why would you risk that for me? You barely know me. Luke took a deep breath. It was now or never. I think you know why. He stepped closer, his hand coming up to gently cup her cheek. She leaned into his touch, her eyes closing. Luke, she whispered, I'm afraid. Of what? Of this. Of feeling this way about you. Of what happens when my past catches up with me. We'll face it together, he promised. And then he was kissing her, softly at first, then with growing intensity as she responded, her arms wrapping around his neck. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Luke rested his forehead against hers. No more running, okay? Whatever comes, we'll handle it. Sophia nodded, her heart too full for words. For the first time in her life, she felt truly seen, truly valued for who she was. Whatever happened next, she would treasure this moment, this feeling forever. Eleanor Lancaster hung up the phone, her face alight with cold triumph. He's found her, she announced to Richard, who was pacing her study. She's with some farmer in a place called Cedar Grove. Richard stopped pacing. Good, I'll go get her myself. Not alone, Eleanor said sharply. Take Dr. Matthews with you. She'll need to be sedated for the trip back, and take Wilson for security in case this farmer decides to be difficult. Do you really think that's necessary, Mother? She's blind, for God's sake. She's not going to put up much of a fight. Eleanor's eyes flashed. We can't take chances, not now. The shareholders' meeting is in 3 weeks. We need her back here under control before then. Richard studied his mother's face, noting the lines of strain around her mouth, the hard glint in her eyes. There's more, isn't there? Something you're not telling me. Eleanor looked away. Dr. Matthews called earlier. He's genuinely concerned about the side effects if she's been off her medication this long. What kind of side effects? She might start experiencing visual phenomena, flashes of light, brief moments of sight. Eleanor's voice was tight. He says it's the brain trying to heal itself, trying to re-establish the pathways that the medication has been suppressing. Richard's face drained of color. You mean she might realize her blindness isn't permanent? That we've been deliberately keeping her in the dark? Literally? Exactly, which is why we need to find her quickly. Eleanor's voice hardened. I will not let everything we've worked for be destroyed because your sister had a moment of rebellion. Richard nodded slowly. I'll leave first thing in the morning. We'll have her back by tomorrow night. Good. And Richard? Eleanor's eyes were cold. Make sure this farmer understands the consequences of interfering in Lancaster family matters. I want no loose ends. The next morning dawned bright and clear. Sophia woke feeling lighter than she had in months, despite the looming threat of discovery. Last night's kiss with Luke had changed everything, opening her heart to possibilities she had never dared to imagine. She dressed quickly in the clothes Mrs. Winters had altered for her, jeans and a simple blouse, and made her way downstairs, her cane tapping lightly on the wooden steps. The house was quiet. Luke must already be outside doing his morning chores. Sophia moved with growing confidence to the kitchen, where she filled the coffee pot and set it to brew, just as Luke had shown her. She felt along the countertop for the bread box, planning to make toast. As she worked, she hummed softly to herself, remembering the feel of Luke's lips on hers, the safety of his strong arms around her. For the first time since her accident, she felt truly alive, truly herself. The sound of the screen door opening made her smile. Good morning, she called. Coffee's almost ready. Well, isn't this domestic? Said a voice that was decidedly not Luke's. Sophia froze, the bread knife clutched in her hand. Richard. Hello, sister dear. Her brother's smooth, cultured voice was like ice water down her spine. I have led us on quite a chase. Sophia backed up until she felt the counter behind her. How did you find me? That's not important. She heard his footsteps approaching. What matters is that you're coming home where you belong. No. Sophia gripped the knife tighter. I'm not going back. I have a life here now. Richard laughed, a sound devoid of humor. A life? Playing house with some dirt farmer? Don't be ridiculous, Sophia. You're a Lancaster. You belong with your family. The family that lied to me? That kept me drugged and isolated? That family? Richard sighed heavily. You're confused. Sister, the medication was for your own good. You were having delusions, paranoia, side effects of the brain trauma. Dr. Matthews can explain it all again when we get home. Sophia shook her head, her resolve hardening. I'm not confused, Richard. For the first time in months, I'm thinking clearly, and I'm staying here. I'm afraid that's not an option. Richard's voice took on a harder edge. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. Your choice. Where's Luke? Fear for him overrode her own. What have you done to him? Your farmer. Friend is fine. For now, he's having a chat with Wilson out by the barn. The threat in his voice was unmistakable. His continued well-being depends entirely on your cooperation. Sophia's hand trembled on the knife. She knew her brother well enough to know he wasn't bluffing. Richard Lancaster always got what he wanted by whatever means necessary. If I go with you, she said slowly, you'll leave him alone? You won't hurt him? Of course. We're not monsters, Sophia. We just want what's best for you. She didn't believe him for a second, but she also knew she had no choice. If she refused, Richard would simply have her taken by force, and Luke might be hurt in the process. Let me talk to him first, she insisted. Let me say goodbye. Richard was silent for a moment, considering. Fine. 5 minutes. Then we're leaving. His footsteps moved away toward the front of the house. Don't try anything foolish, Sophia. Wilson is quite skilled at his job, and I'd hate for your farmer to have an accident. When he was gone, Sophia sagged against the counter, her heart pounding. She had to warn Luke, had to find a way to let him know what was happening. But how? They would be watching, listening. Before she could formulate a plan, the back door opened again. Sophia, Luke's voice was tight with concern. Are you okay? There are men here. They say they're your family. Luke. She moved toward his voice, reaching out until her hands found his chest. My brother's here. They want to take me back. His arms came around her, solid and protective. I won't let them. You have to, she said urgently. They've threatened you. My brother, he'll do whatever it takes to get what he wants. Please, Luke, don't fight them. Like hell I won't. The steel in his voice matched what she'd heard the night before. This is my property. They can't just come in here and take you against your will. Luke, please. Sophia clutched at his shirt. You don't know what they're capable of. I couldn't bear it if something happened to you because of me. He caught, her hands in his. Nothing is going to happen to me, and I'm not letting them take you anywhere you don't want to go. The sound of footsteps made them both tense. Time's up, Richard called from the doorway. Dr. Matthews is waiting in the car. Sophia felt Luke stiffen beside her. Doctor, what doctor? Our family physician, Richard explained smoothly. He's here to ensure Sophia's comfortable for the journey home. You mean to drug her? Luke said flatly. Like you've been doing. For months, Richard's voice turned cold. I don't believe this concerns you, Mr. Mitchell. This is a family matter. Sophia is my concern, Luke said, his arm tightening around her waist. And she's not going anywhere she doesn't want to go. There was a moment of tense silence. Then Richard sighed. Wilson, please explain the situation to Mr. Mitchell. Heavy. Footsteps entered the kitchen, and Sophia felt Luke being pulled away from her. Luke, it's okay, Sophia, he said, but she could hear the strain in his voice. I'm right here. Mr. Mitchell. Richard's voice was calm, reasonable. My sister has suffered a traumatic brain injury. She hasn't been thinking clearly. Her doctors are concerned about her being off her medication for so long. She needs professional care, supervision. She's been doing just fine here, Luke countered. She's stronger than you think. I appreciate your concern for my sister, truly, but surely you can see this is no place for her. She's blind, Mr. Mitchell. She needs specialized care, not a farmhouse in the middle of nowhere. She needs respect, Luke shot back. She needs to be treated like an adult capable of making her own decisions, something you people don't seem to understand. There was a sharp sound, flesh hitting flesh, and Luke grunted in pain. "Stop it," Sophia cried. "Please, Richard, don't hurt him." "I'll go with you. Just leave him alone." "Sophia, no," Luke began, but another dull thud cut him off. "A wise decision," Richard said smoothly. "Wilson, help my sister to the car. Dr. Matthews can administer a mild sedative for the journey." Strong hands gripped Sophia's arms, guiding her inexorably toward the door. She struggled against the hold, desperate for one last moment with Luke. Luke, I know," his voice called back, pained but determined. "I know, Sophia. This isn't over. I promise you that." As she was led outside, the sun warm on her face, Sophia felt a tear slide down her cheek. Luke had shown her what freedom felt like, what it meant to be truly valued. She wouldn't forget that lesson, no matter what happened next. In the car, a gentle voice she recognized as Dr. Matthews murmured, "Just a small injection, Sophia." "To help you relax." "No," she protested, trying to pull away. "I don't want to be drugged anymore." But her struggles were useless against the firm hands holding her still. She felt the sharp sting of a needle in her arm, and almost immediately, a familiar heaviness began to spread through her limbs. As consciousness began to slip away, Sophia clung to one thought, one promise to herself. This time would be different. This time she knew the truth, and somehow she would find her way back to Luke, back to the freedom she had tasted, back to the man who had taught her to see herself clearly, even in darkness. Luke struggled against Wilson's grip, watching helplessly as Sophia was led to a sleek black car waiting in the driveway. Blood trickled from a cut on his lip where the security man had struck him. "You won't get away with this," he growled at Richard Lancaster, who was straightening his expensive suit as if nothing untoward had happened. "I already have, Mr. Mitchell." Richard's smile was cold. "My sister will receive the best care money can buy. She'll want for nothing. In time, she'll forget this little adventure." "She'll never forget," Luke said with certainty, "and neither will I." Something in his tone made Richard pause. "Let me give you some friendly advice, Mr. Mitchell. Forget my sister. Forget you ever met her. The Lancasters have a long reach and a longer memory. Cross us and you'll regret it." "Is that a threat?" "Merely a statement of fact." Richard handed him a business card. "However, should you choose to be reasonable, that's my private number. Call it, name a figure, and we can ensure this unfortunate incident is forgotten by all parties." Luke stared at the card in disbelief. "You think you can buy me off? You think I'd just sell her out for money?" Richard raised an eyebrow. "Everyone has a price, Mr. Mitchell, even rugged farmers with principles." He glanced around the modest farm. "Especially those whose property appears to be in need of investment." Luke crumpled the card and threw it at Richard's feet. "Get off my land." Richard sighed, as if disappointed in a child's behavior. "As you wish. Wilson, release Mr. Mitchell. We're leaving." The security man gave Luke a final shove before following Richard to the car. Luke watched, helpless with fury, as they drove away, taking Sophia with them. For a moment he stood frozen, the taste of blood in his mouth and despair in his heart. Then determination took over. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. He strode to his truck, grabbing the keys from the hook by the door. He had no plan, no real idea what he was going to do. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He wasn't going to let them keep her prisoner again. Sophia had fought for her freedom once. This time, she wouldn't have to fight alone. In the back seat of the luxury sedan, Sophia drifted in a drugged haze, familiar and hated. Through the fog, she heard Richard on the phone. "We have her." "Yes, sedated?" "No, I don't think the farmer will be a problem." "Of course, I'll handle the local authorities if necessary." Sophia struggled to focus, to fight against the medication, pulling her under. As her consciousness dimmed, another strange flash occurred, brighter this time, longer. For a brief, disorienting moment, she thought she could see shapes, blurry outlines of the car interior. Then it was gone, leaving confusion in its wake. What was happening to her? Were these flashes real, or was her mind playing cruel tricks? Before she could contemplate it further, darkness claimed her completely. Her last coherent thought was of Luke, his kiss, his promise, and the determination in his voice when he said, "This isn't over." She clung to that promise as she slipped into unconsciousness, not knowing that even as Richard took her father, away from the farm, from Luke, from freedom, the truth about her condition was fighting to emerge, a truth that would change everything. Sophia woke in her old bedroom, the familiar scent of lavender and polish surrounding her. The same soft, expensive sheets beneath her. The same silence broken only by the faint hum of the air. Conditioning. She was back in her gilded prison. "Good morning, dear," her mother's voice came from nearby. "How are you feeling?" Sophia didn't answer. Her head felt heavy, her thoughts sluggish, the familiar side effects of the medication they'd been giving her for months. "Now don't be difficult," Eleanor said, her tone sharpening. "Dr. Matthews says you'll need time to readjust to your medication schedule. It's for your own good, you know." Sophia finally turned her head toward her mother's voice. "Where's Margaret?" she asked, referring to her lady's companion. "I've given her the day off. I thought it would be nice if I took care of you myself today." Mother-daughter time. The idea was so absurd that Sophia almost laughed. Eleanor Lancaster hadn't taken care of anyone in decades. She had people for that. "I want to sit by the window," Sophia said. There was a brief hesitation, then the rustle of expensive fabric as Eleanor stood. "Of course, dear." Her hands were cool and impersonal as she helped Sophia from the bed and guided her to the window seat. As Sophia settled herself, she realized something was different. The fog in her mind wasn't as thick as usual. She could think more clearly than she had in months, at least more clearly than she had before her escape. "I'll have Carla bring up some breakfast," Eleanor said. "You must be starving after your adventure." "I'm not hungry," Sophia replied. What she was angry and determined. She had tasted freedom, had experienced what it was like to be treated as a capable adult. She wouldn't give that up again without a fight. "You need to eat to keep up." "Your strength," Eleanor insisted. "I'll have her bring something light, toast and tea perhaps." As her mother's footsteps receded, Sophia leaned her head against the cool glass of the window. Luke's face filled her mind, his kind eyes, though she had never seen them, his gentle hands, the warmth of his lips on hers. She wondered what he was doing now. Was he worried about her? Was he even now trying to find a way to help her? Sharp pain lanced through her head, making her gasp. And then it happened again, that strange flash of light brighter than before, lasting longer. For a disorienting moment, she thought she could make out shapes. The outline of the window frame, the blurry shadow of a tree outside. Sophia pressed her palms against her eyes, heart racing. What was happening to her? Dr. Matthews had been clear. The damage to her optic nerves was permanent. Yet these flashes kept occurring more frequently now, lasting longer each time. Could it be possible? Could her blindness be? The door opened, interrupting her thoughts. "Here we are," Eleanor announced. "Toast, tea, and your morning medicine." Sophia lowered her hands, her mind racing. She needed to be clear-headed if she was going to figure out what was happening, and that meant avoiding the medication if possible. "I can feed myself," she said, as she heard the tray being set down. "Of course you can," Eleanor replied, though her tone suggested otherwise. "Here's your tea, and the toast is at 2 o'clock on the plate. Your pills are beside the cup." Sophia reached for the teacup, deliberately knocking it over. "Oh, I'm so sorry." "It's fine," Eleanor said tightly. "I'll clean it up and get you another." As soon as her mother left the room, Sophia felt for the pills on the tray. Finding them, she quickly hid them in the cushion of the window seat, slitting the fabric with her fingernail. By the time Eleanor returned, she was sitting innocently, hands folded in her lap. "Let's try again," Eleanor said, placing a new cup in Sophia's hands. "And do be more careful this time." Sophia sipped the tea obediently. "Mother, why did you lie to me about Luke? About the farm?" Eleanor went still. "What do you mean?" Richard told Luke that I had delusions, paranoia from brain trauma. But that's not true, is it? I never had any delusions. You just wanted to control me. Sophia, you're confused, Eleanor said, her voice carefully modulated. The accident affected your mind as well as your sight. The medication helps manage the symptoms, you know this. I know that I felt completely fine at the farm, better than fine. Happy, clear-headed, for the first time since the accident. Because you didn't know any better, Eleanor snapped, then immediately softened her tone. I mean, you didn't realize how the delusions were affecting you. Dr. Matthews explained this. The paranoia can feel like clarity. Sophia set down her cup. I want to speak to Dr. Matthews myself, without you or Richard present. That's not necessary. He'll be checking on you later today, and either I speak to him alone or I'll start screaming and won't stop until every servant in this house comes running, Sophia threatened, her voice deadly calm. And I'll tell them all exactly what's been happening to me. The silence that followed was brittle with tension. Finally, Eleanor sighed. Fine, I'll arrange it. But I think you'll find he agrees completely with our approach to your care. After Eleanor left, Sophia returned to the bed, her mind whirling with suspicions and half-formed theories. Something wasn't right about her condition, about the way her family had responded to her accident, and those flashes of light. What did they mean? She needed answers, and more than that, she needed help. Luke paced the sheriff's office, frustration evident in every line of his body. What do you mean there's nothing you can do? They took her against her will. Sheriff Miller, a man in his 50s with a weathered face and tired eyes, sighed heavily. Luke, I understand. You're upset. But according to her family, Ms. Lancaster has been under medical care for months following a traumatic brain injury. They have documentation from her doctors, legal guardianship papers, everything in order. It's all lies. Luke slammed his iron hand on the desk. They've been keeping her drugged, isolated. She was getting better at the farm, regaining her independence. Maybe so, the sheriff conceded, but legally my hands are tied. The Lancasters are powerful people with an army of lawyers. Unless Ms. Lancaster herself files a complaint, how can she when they're keeping her sedated? Luke ran a hand through his hair in frustration. There has to be something we can do. The sheriff hesitated, then lowered his voice. Look, this is off the record, but I've heard things about the Lancasters over the years. Rumors. Nothing that would stand up in court, but enough to make me wonder. He glanced around, though they were alone in the office. They've got their fingers in a lot of pies, real estate, pharmaceuticals, technology, old money, but always looking for more. What does that have to do with Sophia? Maybe nothing. But it's strange that they'd go to such lengths to keep her isolated after her accident. The sheriff tapped his fingers thoughtfully on the desk. Tell you what, I can't officially help you, but I know someone who might be able to. Journalist named Meredith Chen. She's been investigating the Lancasters for a story. Been trying to get dirt on them for years. Luke's eyes narrowed. How do I find her? She's staying at the Cedar Grove Inn, room 212. Sheriff Miller fixed Luke with a stern look. You didn't hear that from me, understand? And Luke, be careful. People who cross the Lancasters tend to regret it. At the Lancaster mansion, Sophia was preparing for her meeting with Dr. Matthews. She had managed to avoid her. Medication all day, claiming nausea whenever Eleanor tried to insist. Her mind was clearer now, memories of her time at the farm sharp and precious in her thoughts. The door opened, and she heard the familiar sound of Dr. Matthews's footsteps, measured, precise, with the faint squeak of expensive leather shoes. Sophia, he greeted her, his voice professionally warm. Your mother tells me you've been having a difficult time readjusting. I want to talk to you alone, Dr. Matthews, Sophia said firmly. Please ask my mother to leave. There was a pause, then Eleanor's voice, tight with annoyance. I'll be right. Outside if you need me, Doctor. The door closed and Sophia heard Dr. Matthews settle into a chair near her bed. Now he said, What seems to be troubling you? Sophia turned her face toward him. I've been experiencing something strange. Flashes of light. Moments where I think I can see shapes, outlines. What does it mean? There was a long silence. Then, It's not uncommon for patients with your type of injury to experience visual phenomena, the brain trying to make sense of random neural firing. Is that really what it is? Or is something else happening? Sophia leaned forward. Doctor, I need you to be honest with me. Is my blindness truly permanent? Dr. Matthews' breathing changed, becoming slightly faster. The damage to your optic nerves was severe, Sophia. We've discussed this. That's not an answer to my question. Sophia's voice hardened. Is there any chance, any possibility at all, that I might regain my sight? Another long pause. It would be extremely unlikely, but not impossible. The doctor sighed heavily. In medicine, we rarely deal in absolutes. There are always outliers, exceptions, but you shouldn't get your hopes up, Sophia. It would be cruel to— What's in the medication you've been prescribing me? She interrupted. The exact composition. It's a proprietary blend, he replied, smoothly. Designed specifically for patients with your type of brain injury. It helps manage the neurological symptoms, the headaches, the mood swings, the perceptual disturbances. Like these flashes of light, Sophia pressed. Does the medication suppress them? A longer pause this time. In a manner of speaking, yes. Sophia's heart began to race. And since I've been off the medication, they've been increasing in frequency and duration. That's not a coincidence, is it? Dr. Matthews stood suddenly, his chair scraping against the floor. I think this conversation has gone far enough. You're clearly agitated, which is a common symptom when the medication routine is disrupted. I'll prescribe something to help you rest. No. Sophia rose as well, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. No more medication, not until I know exactly what's happening to me. Sophia, please be reasonable. Leave, she said coldly. Now, or I start screaming. After the doctor hurried out, Sophia sat back on the bed, her mind racing. Dr. Matthews' evasiveness had confirmed her suspicions. There was something they weren't telling her about her condition, something important, and she was beginning to suspect exactly what it might be. Luke sat across from Meredith Chen in her hotel room, watching as the journalist spread photographs and documents across the bed. I've been tracking the Lancasters for 3 years, she explained, pushing her glasses up her nose. Started as a story about corporate takeovers, but I kept finding these ethical gray areas, questionable drug trials, property acquisitions through dubious means, political influence peddling. What does this have to do with Sophia? Meredith held up a hand. I'm getting there. About 8 months ago, there was a car accident. Sophia Lancaster was driving home from a gallery showing— she's an artist, you know— when her car went off. The road. She told me about the accident, Luke said. It's how she lost her sight. Yes, but here's where it gets interesting. Meredith pulled out a police report. According to this, Sophia's injuries were serious but not catastrophic. Concussion, lacerations, broken wrist. Nothing about permanent blindness. Luke frowned. That can't be right. Sophia is blind. Is she? Meredith's eyes gleamed with the excitement of a reporter onto a big story. 2 weeks after the accident, the Lancasters transferred her to a private medical facility owned by Lancaster Pharmaceuticals. No visitors allowed. When she emerged 3 months later, she was blind, supposedly from damage to her optic nerves. You're saying what, blinded her on purpose? That's insane. Not blinded, suppressed her vision. Meredith pulled out another document. This is a research paper co-authored by Dr. James Matthews, the Lancasters' private physician. It details experimental treatments for neurological trauma using a drug called VisioBlock. The drug temporarily suppresses visual processing in the brain. Luke stared at her, the implications sinking in. Are you saying Sophia's blindness isn't real? I'm saying it might be medically induced. Temporary. Meredith leaned forward. The question is why? Why would the Lancasters want to keep their own daughter and sister blind and dependent? Luke thought back to what Sheriff Miller had said about the Lancasters' business interests. What exactly does Lancaster Pharmaceuticals do? They're primarily a research company, developing new drugs, running clinical trials. Meredith shuffled through more papers. Their biggest project right now is a drug called OcuClear, supposedly a revolutionary treatment for several types of blindness. FDA approval. Is pending, and they've got major investors lined up. Let me guess, Luke said grimly. Dr. Matthews is heading that research? Got it in one. Meredith nodded. But here's the kicker. I have sources that say the clinical trials for OcuClear showed serious side effects in some patients, effects that the Lancasters covered up. Luke stood abruptly, the pieces falling into place. Sophia could have seen something. Documents, test results, something that would expose the cover-up. And then conveniently had an accident and emerged blind and dependent on her family. Meredith's eyes were alight with the thrill of the chase. It's circumstantial, but it fits. We need to get her out of there, Luke said urgently. If what you're saying is true, they've been drugging her for months to keep her blind and confused. It won't be easy. The Lancaster estate is like a fortress. I don't care. I'm getting her out tonight. Luke's face was set with determination. Will you help me? Meredith grinned. Try and stop me. This could be the biggest story of my career. Tantumot in her room at the Lancaster mansion, Sophia sat very still, listening. The house was quiet, too quiet. She had refused dinner, refused her evening medication, and now she could sense the tension building. Soon they would come. To force the issue, another flash came, this one lasting several seconds. Blurry shapes, light and shadow. It was as if a veil was slowly lifting from her eyes. The revelation that had been building all day crystallized in her mind. Her blindness wasn't permanent. It was induced by the medication they claimed was helping her. The same medication that kept her docile, confused, dependent. But why? What could possibly be worth keeping her in darkness for months? The door opened, and Richard's voice came from the threshold. Still sulking, sister dear? Not sulking. Thinking. Sophia turned toward him. Why, Richard? Why did you do this to me? Do what? His tone was casual, but she heard the underlying tension. Keep me blind. Because that's what you've been doing, isn't it? The medication Dr. Matthews prescribed, it's suppressing my vision, not helping me recover. Richard was silent for a long moment. Then she heard him close the door and walk fully into the room. How did you figure it out? The simple admission shocked her, even though she had suspected it. The flashes. They started when I stopped taking the medication at the farm. They're getting stronger, lasting longer. Damn Matthews, Richard muttered. He assured us that wouldn't happen for at least a month. Why? Sophia demanded, her voice breaking. Why would you do this to me? I'm your sister. Richard sighed heavily. It wasn't supposed to be for this long, just until we could contain the situation. What situation? The OcuClear trials. Richard began pacing. She could hear his footsteps on the carpet. You stumbled onto some discrepancies in the test. Results. Reports of side effects that weren't being disclosed to the FDA. Memory stirred in Sophia's mind. I found files on your computer, emails about patients who suffered seizures, brain damage. Yes, you were going to expose everything, go to the authorities. You couldn't see the bigger picture. His voice took on a familiar, patronizing tone. OcuClear will help millions of people, Sophia. Yes, there were some issues in the early trials, but they're being addressed. So you decided to shut me up. Anger flared in Sophia, hot and cleansing. Was the car accident planned too? Of course not. Richard sounded genuinely shocked. That was just fortuitous timing. You were injured, concussed. It gave us an opportunity to control the narrative. By keeping me blind, by making me think I'd never see again. Sophia's voice rose with fury. Do you have any idea what that did to me, what you took from me? It was necessary, Richard insisted. The shareholders' meeting is next week. Once the FDA approval comes through, the company's stock will triple in value. Billions, Sophia. That's what's at stake. After that, we could have gradually treated your condition, restored your sight. You would have been fine. Fine. Sophia repeated the word flatly. You think I would have been fine after learning my own family had kept me in darkness for months? That you lied to me, drugged me, made me believe I was helpless? You would have understood eventually. It was for the greater good. Get out. Sophia's voice was cold with contempt. Get out of my room before I do something. We'll both regret. Richard's footsteps moved toward the door. I'm sorry you can't see reason, Sophia, but it doesn't matter now. The meeting is in 5 days. After that, you can have your sight back. Until then, you'll stay here, where we can. Make sure you don't interfere." The door closed behind him with a decisive click. Sophia sat frozen, rage and betrayal washing through her in waves. Her own family had done this to her, had stolen months of her life, her independence, her art. All for money, but they had made a critical mistake. They had underestimated her. Again. Night fell over the Lancaster estate. In her room, Sophia waited, listening to the sounds of the house settling into its evening routine. She had been planning all day, ever since her conversation. With Dr. Matthews had confirmed her suspicions. A soft tap at her door made her tense. "Yes?" "It's Margaret, miss. I've brought your evening tea." Sophia relaxed slightly. Margaret, her lady's companion, had always been kind, if somewhat intimidated by Eleanor. "Come in," she called. The door opened and familiar footsteps approached. "Your mother said you weren't feeling well," Margaret said as she set down the tea tray. "Thought some chamomile might help." "Thank you, Margaret." Sophia hesitated, then took a chance. "I missed you today." "I missed you too, miss." Margaret's voice softened. "I was so worried when you disappeared. We all were." "Were you?" Sophia turned toward her. "Margaret, can I ask you something? Something important." A pause. "Of course, miss. The medication I've been taking, did you ever wonder about it?" Margaret's voice dropped to a whisper. "It's not my place to question the doctor's orders." "But did you?" Sophia pressed. Another, longer pause. "You changed when you started taking it. Became different. Less like yourself. I need your help." "Margaret." Sophia reached out, finding the other woman's hand. "I need to get out of here tonight. Miss Sophia, I can't possibly—" "They've been lying to me," Sophia interrupted. "My blindness. It's not permanent. It's the medication keeping me from seeing. They admitted it, Margaret. My own family did this to me." She heard Margaret's sharp intake of breath. "That can't be true." "It is. And once I'm off the medication, long enough, my sight will return. I've already started having flashes, but I need to get away from here before they force more drugs on me." "Even if I believed you, how could I possibly help? There are guards, security systems. You know this house as well as I do. Better, since you can see there must be a way." Margaret was silent for a long moment. Then, "There's a service elevator in the East Wing. The guards don't monitor it because it's only supposed to be used for laundry and deliveries. It leads down to the kitchen, and from there you could reach the garden door." Hope surged in Sophia's chest. "Will you help me? Please, Margaret. I saved some money before the accident. I can pay you." "I don't want your money, miss." Margaret's voice was firm. "If what you're saying is true, it's monstrous. I couldn't live with myself if I didn't help." Relief flooded through Sophia. "Thank you. When can we go?" "Tonight. The night guard takes his break at 2 a.m. It's our best chance." Margaret squeezed her hand. "But miss, where will you go afterward?" Sophia thought of the farm, of Luke. A smile touched her lips. "Home," she said simply. "I'll go home." Luke parked his truck a quarter-mile from the Lancaster estate, hidden behind a stand of trees. Beside him, Meredith Chen checked her phone. "My contact says the guard rotation happens at 2 a.m., she said. "That's our window. If Sophia can make it to the East Gate, we'll have about 3 minutes before the cameras come back online. And if she can't—" Luke's face was grim in the dim light. "Then we move to Plan B." Meredith patted her messenger bag. "I've got enough evidence to make some serious noise. Threaten to go public with what they've done to her. It might be enough to force their hand." Luke nodded, his eyes fixed on the distant lights of the mansion. "I'm not leaving without her." "We won't," Meredith assured him. "One way or another, we're getting her out tonight." They settled in to wait, the minutes ticking by with excruciating slowness. At 1:55, Meredith's phone buzzed. "Guards moving," she whispered. "It's time." They moved silently toward the East Gate, keeping to the shadows. Luke's heart pounded in his chest, tension coiling his muscles. So much could go wrong. What if Sophia couldn't make it to the gate? What if they'd increased security after her last escape? A shadow moved near the gate, making them both freeze. Then a whispered voice, "Luke!" "Sophia." He rushed forward, gathering her into his arms. "Are you okay? Did they hurt you?" "I'm fine," she said, clinging to him. "Margaret helped me get out. She's going back inside. They can't know she was involved." "We need to move," Meredith urged. "The cameras will be back on soon." They hurried back to the truck, Luke supporting Sophia over the uneven ground. Once inside, he pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, reassuring himself that she was really there, really safe. "I knew you'd come," Sophia whispered against his chest. "I knew you wouldn't leave me there." "Never," Luke vowed. "Never again." As they drove away from the Lancaster estate, Sophia explained everything. The OcuClear trials, the side effects. Her family had covered up. The medication that had kept her blind and dependent. "They admitted it," she said, her voice breaking. "My own brother told me it was for the greater good. For money, Luke. They did this for money." Luke's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "They won't get away with it. Not now." "No, they won't," Meredith agreed from the back seat. "I've got enough to write a story that will blow the lid off Lancaster Pharmaceuticals. The FDA will revoke the approval process for OcuClear, and there will be criminal investigations." "I don't care about any of that right now," Sophia said wearily. "I just want to go home, to the farm." Luke reached over and took her hand. "That's exactly where we're going." 3 days later, Sophia sat on the porch of Luke's farmhouse, rocking gently in the chair that had become her favorite spot. Her eyes were closed, but not because she couldn't see. She was savoring the moment, the peace of it. Her vision had been returning gradually as the drug left her system. First more frequent flashes, then longer periods of blurry sight, and now, on the third day, she could see for hours at a time, though everything remained somewhat fuzzy around the edges. Dr. Matthews, confronted with Meredith's evidence and fearing for his own career, had confirmed that her sight would continue to improve. Within a week or two, she should have normal vision again, though she might need glasses for reading. The sound of the screen door opening made her smile. "How did you know it was me?" Luke asked as he settled into the chair beside her. "The way the door creaks when you open it," she replied. "Different from when Mrs. Winters does it. Still using those enhanced other senses, I see." There was a smile in his voice. "Some habits are worth keeping." Sophia opened her eyes, turning to look at him. His features were still slightly blurred, but she could make out the kindness in his eyes, the strong line of his jaw, the way his hair fell across his forehead. "You're exactly how I imagined you'd look." Luke's expression softened. "And how's that?" "Handsome, kind, strong." She reached out, tracing his face with her fingertips as she had done in her days of blindness. "But seeing you, even blurry as you are right now, it's like a gift I never thought I'd have." He caught her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm. "I was so afraid I'd lost you." "Never." Sophia leaned closer, her eyes holding his. "You gave me freedom, Luke. Not just from my family, but from fear. You showed me I was capable, valuable, whole." "You always were," he said softly. "I just reminded you." In the distance, the phone rang inside the house. A moment later, Mrs. Winters called from the door. "It's that reporter lady for you, Sophia. Says it's urgent." Sophia sighed. "I should take it. It's probably about the article she's publishing tomorrow. The one that's going to bring down Lancaster Pharmaceuticals, among other things." Sophia stood, steeling herself for whatever new development Meredith had uncovered. "Richard and Mother will probably face criminal charges. The company stock is already in free fall." "Do you regret it?" Luke asked quietly. "They are your family." Sophia paused, considering. "I regret that it came to this. I regret that they valued money and power over my well-being, my happiness. But I don't regret the truth coming out. Too many people were hurt by what they did." Luke rose and pulled her into his arms. "Whatever happens next, we'll face it together. You're not alone anymore, Sophia." She rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "I know. That's the most precious gift of all." Later, after the call with Meredith, after dinner and comfortable conversation, they walked together in the garden as the sun set. Sophia's vision had improved even in the few hours since morning, and she drank in the riot of colors from Luke's flower beds, the golden light of sunset on the fields beyond. "It's more beautiful than I remembered," she said, gazing at the landscape. "Or maybe I just appreciate it more now." "Beauty means more when you've known its absence," Luke replied, his arm around her waist. Sophia turned to him, studying his face with eyes that grew clearer each day. "When I was blind, you saw me. Really saw me, when even I couldn't see myself. Clearly. How can I ever thank you for that?" Luke brushed a strand of hair from her face. "You could stay," he said simply. "Here with me, not just until you recover, but always." Her heart swelled with emotion. "Are you asking what I think you're asking?" "I know it's fast," he said quickly. "And there's still so much happening. With your family, the investigation, your recovery, we don't have to rush anything. But I love you, Sophia. I think I've loved you since that first day when you were so determined to be independent despite everything." "Luke Mitchell," Sophia said softly. "Are you proposing to me?" He smiled a little sheepishly. "I don't have a ring yet, but yes, I am. Maybe not for right now, but for someday soon, when you're ready." Sophia reached up, tracing the beloved contours of his face with fingers that now worked in harmony with eyes that could see. "I don't need time to know what I want. I love you too, and yes, I'll stay. Forever if you'll have me." As he gathered her into his arms, kissing her with a tenderness that made her heart ache, Sophia knew that she had found something more precious than sight, more valuable than her family's fortune. She had found truth and freedom and love. In the darkness that had been forced upon her, she had found her way to light. And now, with her vision restored and her heart full, she was finally, truly, seeing clearly. Not just with her eyes, but with her heart. And the view, she decided as Luke's arms tightened around her and the first stars appeared in the twilight sky, was absolutely beautiful.